All right, sorry for the delay. I apologize. I forgot the projection cord at home and had to go back and get it. So, I apologize for the delay. Thank you. A lot of new faces. Before you leave, make sure you introduce yourself to me if you haven't on the way out. And I apologize I wasn't here from the beginning of the meeting, but that's okay. You didn't come here for me anyway. You came for Eric and Scott. Now, I've been trying for almost 3 years to get Eric and Scott up here, and they were always too busy and all that. And I think I...
Not true, don't believe him.
I think I shamed you into picking a date 3 months into the future. But I've known Eric now for a couple years. They have a very interesting way they started their business, which is why I wanted them to speak, other than the fact that they've been very successful doing it as well. But it's a partnership, and they'll tell you more about it, where one started as a private lender and one started as the actual investor, and now they're partnered together doing investment deals. And I thought that was rather unique how they did it. Also, they have a pretty decent system in how they set it up, which I thought was very interesting, and that they do a lot of other cities that a lot of people don't necessarily think about when they're taking in where to find deals, which I thought was very interesting too. Plus, he's just a good guy. I don't know Scott as well, but I know Eric well enough that Scott has to be a good guy or wouldn't be working. But anyway, I'll shut up. You don't want to hear from me anyway. Let's give Eric and Scott a big round of applause.
Thank you to everybody for being here tonight. Thank you, Jeremy, for those kind words. Basically, what we're going to do is share our story, especially our story in 2012. And as we all know, the market has been not as kind and forgiving as it was in maybe the last 2 or 3 years. But we're just going to kind of take you on our journey and tell you our story, and then go through some actual deals that we've closed this year. So, that's that.
When he says that he's been trying for 3 years, he's absolutely right. Funny thing is, I haven't spoken, we're not professional speakers, and I haven't spoken in public in 3.5 years, so for him to get me out to do this is something pretty amazing, because I'd rather be spending my time, really I travel the country with my daughter who's getting ready to go to college and play soccer, and I spend my time at my cottage, and I don't usually come to meetings like that. That's another reason why Eric and I have really had a good fit, because he's really the public part, and I really kind of hide under the mushroom. But myself, I was born and raised in the east side of Detroit, came from a poor neighborhood surrounded by crime and drugs, put myself through college. I have a associate's, a bachelor's, and MBA, and I work for a lot of the large companies in the world, such as General Motors and Roger Penske, things like that. I've owned several small businesses over my lifetime. I'm married for 20 years, have 2 kids and a dog, and love doing outdoor things and being at the cottage and doing a lot of up north stuff with my kids. And I am a full-time real estate investor. I haven't worked for a corporation over 4 years, and the last company I worked for, I was the director of sales and marketing at GMAC Insurance.
And a little bit about my background. I grew up very, very middle class in Plymouth. I went to school to not do anything business or real estate related. I went to Oakland University. I got my master's degree in physical therapy. I still currently do work as an orthopedic physical therapist, and I just run our businesses from the clinic. And other, because I only work 3 days. I have 2 kids, and it's funny because, Scott was talking about how we complement each other in so many ways, and you'll see that throughout our story and our presentation. I'm very into things that he's not. So when you see keeping Scott from killing himself with his bad diet, that is a daily battle that we've had for the last 3 years, and it's just a running joke between us, because I'll be the type of person that gets up at 5 o'clock to run on a treadmill. Scott will be the type of person that gets up at 5 in the afternoon to maybe eat a Twinkie. But again, our relationship and our partnership works because really in any kind of great partnership, you have to have complementary skills. Somebody has to bring something different to the table or it doesn't work.
Eric and I met really at a real estate seminar, kind of like this. We're sitting next to each other at a meeting, just like you guys are, so when you talk to people next to you, it's very important to network. So we just happened to talk to each other, exchange phone numbers, and later on we started talking about business and things. And Eric first became a private investor of mine. I was doing business on my own, do a lot of business through my IRA as well as cash that I was able to save and acquire, but I wanted to grow, so I started looking for private investors. Eric then said, hey, why don't we try this? So Eric first started to be a private investor with me. And we really then kind of agreed to move forward from being the private investing only to could we share our vision of what he wanted to do and what I was doing and do it better. So we started a company mutually that we're 50-50 partners in called Helping Hands. We started this in 2010. And we decided we want to grow the company, we want to do more business, we want to expand the areas. There's things that I don't do well, that he does well, and vice versa. And there's also things that we both can do together. So we kind of sat down and said, how can we do this better and grow our company? We also wanted to diversify the business to not only do flipping as what I only did, but to also own rental properties and sell turnkey properties and also help some other people. And Eric and I have actually done over 50 deals together so far in flipping homes.
And just for further clarification on how I became Scott's private investor, I funded the deals through my self-directed IRA. I did not have piles of cash sitting in a bank account somewhere. And when he says that we literally met at a group like this, we did. That's exactly what happened, and a relationship developed over time. So and for all of those people who think that they are too busy to start a company or too busy to capitalize on their real estate dream or their business dream, we officially formed Helping Hands 2 days before my daughter was born, and that was my first child. Scott already had plenty of experience being a dad. I didn't. So there's really no good time to start a business. There's no good time to capitalize on your dream. There's no good time to go after anything. We just did it, and we found a way to make it happen.
Just quickly about our company here, is we specifically came up with some goals. We wanted to make at least 25% net profit on the deals that we did, so we kind of drew a line in the sand. We wanted to look in particular areas. We wanted to come up with certain formulas, so our buy formula up here is our after repair value times 65% minus repairs is our target buy price. You'll see a lot of people are doing things like that, but that's basically our first thing that we agreed on. So we actually sat down and agreed on things within our company of certain standards that we wanted to adhere to. Same thing with our renovations. All our houses are renovated nearly identical. We have 2 color schemes, one in the brown kind of scheme, neutral brown, one in the gray scheme. 19 of the houses are probably done in the brown, 1 is done in the gray because of maybe something that was already in the house or something that told us we want to do it that way. But everything from the carpet, the kitchens, the faucets, everything is very cookie cutter and the same, and we only modify from that on an as needed basis. So again, those are some of the things that we wanted to do. We also decided we don't want to work in the business, we only want to work on the business. I'm very capable of doing a lot of the work. I don't do any of it, but I am capable of also estimating, so myself and our general contractor are pretty much in lockstep when I go walk through a house to know what it's going to cost to rehab the house, and I know what we're going to do on it, or I have a vision when I walk into the house, this and this and this is going to be done to add value to the home. Same thing with purchasing. How are we going to purchase these? We wanted distressed REOs, we wanted probate, we wanted short sales, we wanted anywhere we can get them. In sales, in the beginning, we used to use an exclusive realtor, and as times got tougher, we modified our plan. That's one thing that Eric and I do. We talk about everything. If it's not working, we find a better way. We replace the old way, modify it, change, move forward with whatever we can do to make the business better. But we kind of put together some basics, and we wrote them down on paper of things of how we wanted to operate our company.
And Scott is completely right. We have run into, just like with any business or real estate kind of transaction, you are going to run into problems with the purchase, the start, whatever it is. Plan on overcoming hurdles. It's how you respond to those hurdles. It's how successful you are, because really the bottom line is making money on the house. That's really all it's about. And as long as you're working and continuously working towards that goal, that is a great thing. And I know Scott mentioned also before, we buy all of our houses in cash. We have never mortgaged a house. We buy them all in cash. We also have an extreme fiduciary responsibility to our investors to ensure that we are not only picking the correct house, but we are managing that money like it's our own. And that's how we operate, and that's how we're comfortable operating. We put systems into place, and we just minor tweak the systems as we need to go. But that's how we were comfortable structuring the business. Scott mentioned he could do the work himself. He is extremely handy, and he knows a lot of stuff. I am like Tim the Toolman Taylor on Home Improvement. I am not handy whatsoever. If we want to make money on this house, I basically needed to get the hell out of the way. So.
Here, I know you can't see it from there, but here are just some of the houses. On the right, on the left is actual addresses. you guys can't see it, all the way over to the right is the amount of money that we made on the deals. These are deals that just Eric and I did together. And we're not going to lie, we have lost money. I lost money on 3 homes. There's reasons why I lost money. One is being greedy on a deal. One is buying a house just quickly in a neighborhood that had snow on the neighbor's property. So when I bought the house is great. Everybody liked the house. The snow melted, came to the springtime, and the people looked like the Clampets that lived next door. Nobody wanted to buy this particular house because of the neighbors. So again, lost some money on that house. You can't win them all, but if it ends up in the end that you're positive, that's the important thing. And then if you look at the numbers, I know they're small, but there's some numbers there maybe as low as $7,000 of profit, but there's also some in there $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 of profit that we've made on houses. And here's the second page of, again, deals that Eric and I have done together. Again, you can't see it, but there's 1 or 2. There's actually a couple of rentals in there too, because we have some rentals that are owned actually separately the way that we've done it. But we've had these rentals that we've rehabbed and have out in the market and getting a great return on investment, and we sell them or have them available as turnkey rentals to people too. So if we can get other houses, we'll put them in the portfolio, and if somebody wants to come along and buy it and the price is right, we'll sell them. Otherwise, we keep them for cash flow. Just to show you some of the different things that we do so you can see the quality of work. You see the kitchens, you see the dining room, you see a bathroom. These are all real before and after pictures of some of the homes that we've worked on in rehab. And again, you'll see the same color scheme, the same type of cabinets, similar flooring, similar lighting, toilets, everything in every one of these rehabs that we do. We do take feedback, and that's how we got these colors. We usually use 2 colors in the house plus the white ceilings and white trim, and we modified along to see what we're getting the biggest feedback on for whether it happened to be light fixtures, colors, cabinets, and we went through several different cabinet manufacturers from Home Depot to IKEA to Cabinets to Go to actual cabinet companies to see what is best not only for cost, but what do people seem to pay more money for or have interest in when they're looking at buying the houses. Again, here's some more before and afters, and it is quite amazing the transformation you can make in these homes.
And again, I mean, it's easy to look at these pictures and say, oh, you know, it looks pretty good. But everyone who's rehabbed a house in this room knows there's a lot of planning, a lot of detail, a lot of setting up systems, a lot of trust in your contractor. And like Scott said, we deal with a general contractor. We do not use subcontractors for our house. We deal with one guy, and he knows what we want. We tell him, look, these are the rules, this is what we want in our houses, and let's go.
That is an important part that I guess I didn't talk about a lot. Is I met this gentleman about 4 years ago, and this kind of was a fluke. And he was a handyman doing work for other people, and he was basically next door to one of the homes that I was doing a rehab in, and we kind of met, and he was looking for more work. So we threw him one house to try it, really liked the work, really liked his pricing, really liked the way that we hit it off with him, and haven't looked back since. We have not used any other contractors outside of him. He's in charge of hiring everybody below him except for the granite or the heavy electrical or the heating and cooling that I have specific subs for that, but he takes care of it all. He expands his crew as he needs it, he contracts the crew as he needs it, he knows what I'm looking for, he does the same thing over and over, he's very creative in working inside the homes. We really are on the same page. In fact, I was talking to somebody before the meeting, this guy looks out for so much because we have given him so much work that if he gets a discount on things such as 10% off coupons at Lowe's or Home Depot or something like that, he actually passes the savings on to us. Everything is at his cost when it comes to materials. He doesn't plus the things up, and he actually doesn't charge us to drive around and pick up the materials. But it's the same thing that we use from house to house. So many times you can use the same paint, whatever's left over in the next house. Some of the trim, some of the tile, same tile are buying from the same supplier over and over, so the stuff actually goes to the next house so we don't have leftover and waste. And I let him have a lot of creativity because he knows what we're looking for in all these homes, so he'll make decisions, and many times, one time even changed the direction of a staircase in the house because he thought the kitchen, the bedroom, and the bathroom would flow better. And then he actually literally took the staircase going upstairs and flipped it in the other direction, made a pantry underneath it. And I let him do that, but it was the right thing to do for the house. Anytime that we do have a disagreement, he's not disagreeing. I may say to him something like, I didn't like the way this was done. I would have preferred it done this way. Okay, Scott, it'll be done that way the next time. It's a very good relationship, and again, it's because we've given him so much business that we're number one in his life for the business. And actually somebody said, what happens if you're slow? When we do slow down, we have this agreement. During busy times, we're his number one priority, period, end of the story. He only works on our stuff. If we don't have enough work for him, he is allowed to go outside and do some other, allowed, he doesn't, he's not my employee, but he is allowed to go out and do work in other places. And because of the quality of his work, some of the neighbors come over and start hiring him for jobs. So again, it's a relationship, a communication, and trust. And I have worked with other contractors that have not worked out this well, and we're just very lucky to have this particular person on our team. And we like to call it a team for everybody that works with us.
And, you know, as Scott said, it's not like we, as proactive and aggressive business people, it's not like we have not sought out the services of other contractors, at least to be a backup crew or depending on the volume of our houses, but we just could not find the satisfaction and the quality of work that we needed to put into our properties that we could stand behind, except with our current contractor that we have.
And more importantly, you guys want to learn some things about what we've seen in 2012. And like it says here, if you think the presidential election has been stressful, try being an investor in 2012. In my opinion, this has probably been one of the toughest years that I've seen in investing. Even when I was a part-time investor prior to the crash of real estate, if you want to call it that, I haven't seen it as hard to get through things such as appraisals or finding homes or things like that in today's world. So we're all suffering from low inventory. Investor pricing doesn't seem to be existent in today's world. Lower margins, competition from owner occupants is extremely strong, we're finding today, and difficulty getting appraisals. So what we decided to do is get creative. You got to survive and advance your business. You just have to work smarter.
And we always say survive in advance. We use that phrase a lot. And I don't know where I heard it. I think it's some sports term that I heard, but it's so applicable to a real estate business because every day you're doing stuff to move forward. Every day you're trying to stay one step ahead of the game. And especially in 2012, we've certainly had to do that in much more creative ways, as you'll see in the next couple of slides.
So what do? It's the results that matter to us. We have to protect our money, the investors' money. Look at this as a business. We have to move forward. So we brought 4 particular deals that we thought you guys would be interested in that we did recently in 2012. All have a different story and all have a different obstacle that we had to overcome. But all of them had positive results in this crazy market. And the most important thing is to keep continuing your education. Come to meetings like this, learn from other people, see what they're doing, and you need to see how you can make money in real estate.
This house is a house. It was our Devonwood property in Rochester. And you can see like the tail of the tape here. It was our biggest rehab to date, actually. It's a 4-bed, 2.5 bath, 2-car garage colonial. We acquired it for $139,378. We did put $77,000 into the house. That was our most expensive rehab. We did sell it for $313,000 after paying closing costs. We did net a profit of $72,637. Again, that net that was also our relationship with our investor. Our investor, of course, got some of that net as well.
And here's the details about this particular home.
It's so random how I found this house. I was working in the clinic one day, and one of my patients who has like 3 or 4 things wrong with her, she's like, Eric, I know you do these rehab, these house things like they do on TV. My neighbor, she's a realtor. She sold houses for 20 years in this sub. She has this house that she can't get rid of. It's five houses down from her. Just give her a call. She's like, no, don't wait, because I think she's about ready to put it online. So I literally called her that day. She called me back this afternoon. I found out what was going on. She was very emotionally invested in the house. She tried to sell it from February of 2011 to October of 2011. She tried to sell that house for 9 months. It went into foreclosure. It was a short sale, and she could not find a buyer. I go, can you let me in the house? So I went in the house. I knew the sub like the back of my hand because I work in Rochester, live in Rochester also. And I said, I need to get my business partner over here. Can you do it the next day? She said, that's fine. She called me the next day after Scott seen it. We talked about it. We had probably about an hour in-depth conversation on it. And we were like, let's do it. She called me because 2 hours previous to her calling me, she was going to put it online. I said, don't you touch that computer button at all. I'm coming over. I said, what do you need in the MD? She said $6,700. I was over there within an hour with a check for her. I'm like, don't even put it on, do not put it on the MLS. And that is how we got that house. It was completely, I don't know if it was karma, good luck, opportunity. Who knows? I mean, that patient remembered, but that is how we found one of our best deals. It wasn't necessarily on the MLS. It wasn't necessarily a pocket listing that we had with another realtor. It was just telling people what you do continuously, letting people know what you do. Because that was the last person in the world I ever expected to have that happen.
And that probably is one of the most important lessons of this is people are trying to find houses. You need to tell people what you do. Because if he didn't tell people what he did, never would have found this particular home. And that was the important thing, is finding such a good deal like this that are out there. And if Eric never talked to him, who knows who could have had that particular home. Could be one of you people in this room.
Now, that doesn't mean that everything went smoothly on this house, as we'll tell you in just a second, right, Scott?
This particular home, we earned our money on this particular home. Here are just some of the other additional things. The important part is networking and finding homes in different ways. But these buyers happen to come from Germany, and I happen to be German, so they had this immediate bond, although I'm not fluent in German. Anyway, so they came over and they really acted like we were custom builders, because in Germany, that's how they do all these homes. So they didn't seem to understand that we were rehabbing this house, but they saw this house after we just bought it. That's how they got involved and became demanding. We just bought the house. We started tearing this thing apart. They lived in the neighborhood and wanted to know what was going on. So they stopped by. We want this house. We gave them who the realtor was. And now they're there every other day, being very demanding, trying to go outside of our scope, because if we went outside of our scope, our cost wouldn't be in line with how we typically rehab houses. We had certain things we were going to do to this particular home for certain reasons. Now, when they came in and said they wanted to buy it, of course we wanted to pre-sell this house, but at the same time, they wanted something changed every day. Again, they thought we were like custom builders. They kept calling us the builders. We kept telling them we're not builders. We're just investors rehabbing a home. Well, you guys are the builders. They kept coming every day, and I'm talking about they didn't like the color of the floor after I had thousands of dollars of wood in the garage that I was already planning on putting in. We don't want that color. Can we have a different one? We had to work through things like that, because no, I wasn't taking the wood back, but I told them if they wanted to pay for that wood, I'd put any other color in the house that they wanted. So these are the type of things on a daily basis, times 10 of what really went on behind the scenes. They also wanted this house rehabbed fast because they wanted to get out of the house that they were renting. They were going back to Germany during Christmas time. When they came back, they wanted to buy this house. They had no idea what appraisals take, getting mortgages. So we also had to educate them along the way that this is the holidays. You can't necessarily push appraisals through right this moment. You can't get the mortgage people on the phone because a lot of people are on vacation. And so that when they went to Germany, it was actually quiet for a while because we never heard from them during that time. But when they came back, we had a purchase agreement on this house for what we all agreed on. When it was going to be done, a standard purchase agreement, what the price was, all those kind of things. But now all of a sudden they wanted to renegotiate everything. They wanted so many things different, whether it was appliances included, or whether they had wood or carpet in one of the rooms, or whether a door was in one place. So they kept asking to renegotiate. We had to keep pushing back through the realtor, because I learned early on to try to negotiate with them was not going anywhere. Through the realtor as a buffer zone worked much better. And we had to work through the realtor for her to keep reminding them that this is a signed purchase agreement. This is a binding contract. You have to work with this. One other thing I forgot to mention early on, that house is a 3-bedroom house when we bought it. But it had a big open area in the upstairs.
Like a loft upstairs. And
they had the vision that the house would be worth more as a 4-bedroom. So I knew we could do it. The contractor filled it in and made this open loft into a bedroom with a closet and all. So we turned it into a 4-bedroom house, which is another reason why I think we got the premium. This house actually never went on the market, although the realtor put it on the market and took it off so she could help the comps in her own neighborhood, because she was so emotionally attached with wanting value in her neighborhood. And then to continue on, we didn't get rid of these people. Months later, we get an email, they want to sue us. And I asked how they could sue somebody on an as-is house. But one of the things, we had new air conditioning, new hot water tank, and a new furnace put in the home by a licensed contractor. And after they moved in and the house was inspected twice by their inspector, they came to us 7 months later and said that there happened to be a gas leak, that some of the pipes loosened up. So they wanted quite a bit of money for that and some other things that they said they didn't like. And again, immaterial things, a piece of tile that didn't go as far as the door jamb, they wanted 2 inches further. So they were actually upset later on, after these people are at the house every day wanting changes, different things like that, had the house inspected twice. So we actually contacted an attorney and he just reminded us in the state of Michigan, homes are bought as is unless you have something different in your contract, and you can choose what to do. He said, I'll send them a letter telling them to forget about it, or you guys can choose what you want to do. So after some discussion back and forth with the wife, who seemed to be a little bit more reasonable than the husband, via email, because our realtor didn't seem to want to get involved in this, Eric and I decided the best thing to do, instead of making somebody mad, we just gave them a check for $800 and had them sign a document saying that they would never chase us for any other types of things with this particular deal. Now again, we did not have to do that. The lawyers advised us we did not have to do it, but we try to sleep good at night, and I never want to be on one of those TV shows that are following you around with a camera. And we actually talked about that quite literally and said this is the best thing to do. Let's make them happy. This is what they want, and we gave them $800. And that's just some of the things that we had to encounter. And it really is, it's perseverance, discussion between us, figuring out how to solve the problem and getting over these problems has really moved us forward.
And one last point, just to add a little bit more color to the story, was that our realtor actually brought the sellers to the table, and she flat out told us, like, these people will buy the house at your price, but they are going to be demanding and they're going to be a pain in the ass. We're like, if they'll meet our price, we'll deal with it. Little did we know, wasn't necessarily getting us into. However, one thing that Scott did not mention to the color of the story, which actually did not make him happy at the time, was our realtor decided to take a vacation to Florida between Thanksgiving and Christmas. She went on vacation for a month. So we were dealing with her long distance from Florida as she's representing both of us. So let's just say we haven't used her in the future.
When did you sign the purchase agreement? Was it at the beginning of rehab?
Yes. It was right at the beginning of the rehab. They walked through this neighborhood, has a lot of similar homes. It's a real nice neighborhood in Rochester. So they were used to the floor plans and things like that. And when they came through, they said, we want the walkout basement, we want the 4 bedrooms, we want the kitchen here. And in the garage, I had the wood stacked up, I had tile stacked up. We had cabinets. Actually, we had cabinets picked out in a book, showed them to her. They authorized, yes, we like those particular cabinets. So there's a lot of things, although we're not custom builders, we tried to bend to this particular person because we knew that we could sell this house immediately without having to go on the market. We didn't have to look for a buyer. Maybe we could have sold the house for more, maybe less, not really sure. But to have that buyer in the hand really meant a lot. But again, we did not know what was going to happen after we signed that purchase agreement. But we signed it very soon after we took possession, and we started unrehabbing the house. We started demoing the house.
This is another property that we did in Fenton, and a lot of the house, we have done quite a bit of work in the Fenton, Grand Blanc, Holly area, and that is just because of our relationship that we established with a realtor up there. And we've had some pretty good success up there. This is a 1,435 square feet, 3-bed, 2.5 bath, 2-car garage colonial that we acquired for $84,000, about $85,000. We put about $23,700 in. We sold it for $132,000. After closing costs, we netted about $84,52. Again, that is not our profit that we put in our pocket. We also had to give our investor his or her fair share of the profits as well.
And that's
go ahead.
And that's not a target amount that we normally would work with on the particular deal. That is not what we had in mind in the beginning of the deal. When I go to the next slide, you'll see one of the things that we had to overcome on this particular home, but we still made money. And that's very important. Why you stick to your numbers. It's one of the things I can't stress enough. You got to stick to your numbers on all these deals. You can't get emotional and think you're going to get a little bit more or something. You really got to look at the hard facts, because that can absorb things like this that you're going to see on the next page that happen to happen.
The problem that we had with this house is we had absolutely no trouble with the rehab. The rehab was quick, it was easy, very, very few minor glitches. The problem with this was the appraisal. So the appraisal comes in. We had an appraiser that was coming from an outside area. I don't know if you can even remember where the appraiser was for that first area. I don't even remember where he was. It was not a local appraiser. What happens was that the house appraised for a certain value. I believe it was $132,000. We decided to get a second appraisal.
Well, that's $13,000 below what the selling price
Correct,
was.
because the house was being sold for $144,000. We had it on the market. We get a second appraisal. That appraisal comes in at 145, if I have my numbers correct. Problem with that is that the buyer that we had lined up, the mortgage company did not honor the second appraisal and went to
because they found out that it was a flip, which all people should know in the beginning when you're selling houses. And I stress this a lot with the realtors. If you're working with a new realtor, make sure when you have a buyer, you let them know that this house is being flipped so they can tell their mortgage company. So when our appraisal came in $13,000 low, we didn't want to stand for that. How do you lose $13,000 on the sale? There's got to be a better way. So we did offer and buy another appraisal. That appraiser came in, again, an independent one out of a pool, came with what we needed. So when they took what we needed to their mortgage company, the mortgage company said, "Oh, golly gee, this is a flip. We don't do flips." So it kind of set us in a bad position that we already paid for the appraisal. We got it to where we needed to be. These people want to move into the house because of school was starting, and the mortgage company wouldn't do it. So they went to another mortgage company, and that mortgage company would only honor the lower appraisal.
So now we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Do we risk that the house stays on the market for infinity for the rest of the year? Because again, this is around August, September, beginning of September. Or do we take the deal and have everybody kind of sacrifice a little bit to get the deal done? We chose to get the deal done. We did not want to risk leaving that house on the market because who knows if we could have gotten 132. Maybe we would have come back at 120. We didn't know. And we also had, again, a financial responsibility to our investor to pay him or her in a timely fashion. We had already held on to this house much longer than we did. The turnaround time from start to finish was 182 days from close to close. We thought it was in all of our best interest to just move on from the deal.
And don't be afraid to negotiate with your realtors and other people involved. I infer to these people a lot of times.
We do it all the time.
That you guys are going to cut your commission if you want to sell this house. Ask the selling, because if it's two different realtors, I'm working with our seller, or the person that's representing us, I'll have them go and infer that to the other person. Sometimes other realtors will say absolutely not. Sometimes you can be convincing enough to say, hey, would you rather have something rather than nothing? I've also seen the title company kick in a few dollars. I know it sounds silly. Every title insurance is one amount, but there's some additional fees that are negotiable. We've seen the mortgage people kick in money. So there's a lot of different places that if you can be creative, you can make the deal work. So in the end, instead of eating the $13,000, which would have made this deal basically a wash, we actually only ate $5,000, and we still all made money on the deal by just inferring and negotiating with people. So to me, unless you ask, you never know what the answer is.
Why did the rehab take 6 months?
Oh, it didn't take 6 months. It was a short rehab from the time to close. From the time to purchase, including rehab on the market, going through this fiasco, and close took that amount of time.
And your contract with the investor was for a specific time period, or was it open-ended?
It was open-ended.
You guys had FHA buyers, I assume?
On this one, I don't think there.
I don't think we did have FHA on this one. No. We usually do have FHA on some of our other properties.
Speaking of FHA, that is the one that we have the most problems with, but it seems to be hit and miss. 1 out of 4 of them with FHA seems to come in low, and I know that they've recently changed some of the rules, and I think an appraisal sticks with them for only 2 months or something, but I'm not an expert in that particular area. But you'll see in another deal, we did have some offers on the table. We chose to not take FHA when you can have some selection with who's buying your home for reasons like that.
This house was a house that we did in Sterling Heights. I'm sorry, in Clinton Township. My mistake. I'm sorry, Clinton Township. It backed up to an elementary school. We acquired the house for $75,620. We put $31 into it. We sold it for $172. After our closing costs, we netted $34,248. The great thing about this house, and I was having a conversation with someone before the meeting, is we actually hunted for a local real estate expert in this area. I interviewed personally 3 to 4 people because I wanted to make sure, since our realtor was not experienced in this area whatsoever, I needed to have someone who was. because I needed someone to aggressively market this house. Now, the great thing is, it did back to an elementary school. It was on a nice street. It wasn't the elephant on the street or anything. There was a lot of colonials on the street, so it wasn't necessarily a hard sell, but I just wanted to make sure that we got the most for our money. And as you'll see on the next slide, go ahead, Sam.
The interesting part about this house and why it was so important to find the expert, we put the house on the market for $149, and as you've seen, we sold that house in the middle of the year for $172, prior to a lot of these highest and best kind of things that you see going on as the inventory started to dry up. So we actually put this house on the market, and we were happy with trying to sell this house for $149,000.
Yep.
Selected this particular expert that came in, looked at the house, liked the area. She sold houses in this particular neighborhood before. She put it on the market for a week, but she did something that none of our realtors have ever done, and we've talked about it, and we haven't put our toe in the water to do it again. But at the end of the week, she puts this house that doesn't have any offers up for highest and best. So she puts this house up for highest and best. We thought it was a very risky strategy, because how could you put it for highest and best when you don't have any offers? But all of a sudden we get 14 offers, 4 of them over asking price.
Honestly, she called me and I thought it was a prank call. I think we disconnected. I hung up on her, and I'm not even kidding when I tell you that, because it was literally a week from the time I signed the paperwork with her.
And here is just 4 of the better offers that we got that were over asking price. As you can see, one was FHA, one was conventional, 2 were FHA, and 1 was VA. So having our knowledge of FHA, we do sell homes FHA, but know that sometimes it's riskier with the appraisals and some other things that they may want. And it was also lower, and they wanted some concessions. We also really took a hard look at the conventional. People are putting 20% down. They're probably going to go through. The appraisers and the appraisal is going to be probably a little easier. It's easier to get a second one if you need it. Things like that. We really went back and forth of weighing out the conventional versus the VA. But we thought the VA was a lot more money to risk with trying to do this. So we went with the VA loan, accepted that particular loan, our particular buyer, and again, looking at it is at least we had some options. This was a risky situation, but the big moral moving forward in this one was finding an expert in the particular area. So we decided on the VA loan, did very little negotiation to work out the details, but the biggest thing is we were really worried this house wouldn't appraise. We were scared to death that was the biggest risk. But we also talked about this too in the business model. As long as we're making money, being over was the gravy. We decided between us that we were well prepared to take a cut. If that appraisal happened to come in low, we were already prepared to say, sure, we'll do what you need to do, because we knew that we could still make money at a lower appraisal. So we risked it and went forward. And so Eric happened to get this call from the realtor.
Yeah, and the thing is, one of the things that our realtor was very good at, she was very proactive and aggressive. It was never a thing where I had to coach her on being aggressive because she had so much experience. She took it upon herself to meet the appraiser at the house and provide some comps. Now, sometimes that strategy works, sometimes it doesn't. Apparently, in this situation, she was either a good saleswoman or she obviously provided the comps that were necessary, because, and that was one of my whole visions when I started this project, was to get somebody like that. She had sold houses on that particular street. She knew things like the back of her hand. It wasn't like pulling teeth. We didn't have to tell her to do her job, which I know we've all run into some realtors that's happened to. There's good and bad in everything. But we were just thankful that she was aggressive as she was, because she didn't want the house to sit either.
Another thing, back to the appraisals, is it seems when I'm hearing the word on the street or from other people, one of the toughest things in today's market really is the appraisal. And our main realtor that sells our other stuff really does have her system down. I'm just going to tell you what she does. Whether it works for everybody else, I don't really know. But we rarely have appraisal problems in today's world, or last year or whatever. We rarely have appraisal problems. They do happen, but rarely. And our particular realtor does go meet. She actually changes the lockbox prior to the appraiser ever getting there, so they have to call her so she knows exactly when they're coming to meet her. She puts together a package in a manila envelope, and on the first page, I'm not sure if I got them on the right order, but the first page she has a purchase agreement with things highlighted, when the contract date is, what the amount is, what the concessions are. She makes sure she has a current legal description, because she said so many times closings have been held up or delayed because of wrong legal descriptions, so she puts that in there. She puts a summary of what was done to the home She does put comps, and she puts those all the way in the end, but I can't, there's something else she puts in the envelope. And she meets them, introduces.
Not to our knowledge.
Yeah, not to our knowledge. She meets the appraiser there, hands him the package, welcomes to the house, hands him the package. She does not follow him around. She does not say that there's comps in there or anything like that. She just says, I put some stuff together on this particular deal that you might be able to use. More often than not, these people have called her back. Thank you very much, I had this wrong. Thank you very much, I didn't know this. And we rarely have the appraisal problems. I'm not saying that that's giving the full edge, but I think when you can help assist somebody with their work, it really does help without telling them that you're assisting them. And I think that's a difference, because I have heard other people that have been very aggressive at giving this paperwork, and it doesn't seem to work for them. So being passive but doing it in a very succinct way,
Right.
and giving them, I think, has helped us with our appraisals across the board at all the houses.
I'll look at anything the realtors give me. Whether I use it, that's the next question, but I'll look at it, and
It's good.
it's
feedback.
always helpful to have,
Right.
like you said, a PA that's signed by everybody, which we need, and stuff like that. But yeah, I'll
So
look at all the comps.
You, as
that
the
I need.
appraiser, would look at that as a positive thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Meet
We-
me
we
there,
think-
not
we think it is.
necessarily. I don't need to meet you there. Put it on the counter for me. Because
Right.
I had a house delayed by almost a week because the realtor couldn't meet me there. Come to find out, they just wanted to be there. I said, if you want to give me something, I'll look at anything. Leave it on the counter. Let me go in when I can. So.
All right, sorry to interrupt. I promised I would do this so to get you here. 5 states have been called. A little election update here. Vermont went to President Obama, and Romney has Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, and South Carolina. Currently, Romney is in the lead with 33 electoral votes, and President Barack Obama has 3 electoral votes. Please go back to those.
All right. No endorsement here, but on that positive note.
Sorry, I promised I would do that. I know
No
that
problem.
would
No, you're good.
That's good.
So the bottom line is that working with the appraisals, negotiating if you can, asking for things really does work. Knowing your market, finding somebody that does really gives you a leg up. So here's one more home that we'd like to discuss.
Yeah, this is a house that is in Sterling Heights. It's a colonial, and in some streets in Sterling Heights, a lot of them are ranches. So really, again, it's knowing your street, knowing your market in Sterling Heights. This is almost a 1,200 square foot, 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage colonial. We bought it for $60,496. We put about $25,000 into it. We sold it for $120,000. After closing costs, we netted $14,450. This was a little bit of a longer project. It almost took 6 months. And again, when we say close to close from when we bought it, to when we sold it, the rehab did not take that long. The rehab on this house, again, was a fairly standard rehab. I think this one was more of a 4 to 5 weeker, if I'm not mistaken. But you will see some of the issues that we ran into very close to the closing date.
Just before closing on this particular home, we get a phone call that says, "You guys know that you owe $6,800 to the city?" No, didn't know that, because might not have bought the house, or I'd have negotiated that into the deal when we did buy it. So we did a lot of due diligence at that time of why the title company didn't find this. I even went down to the city. I asked all kinds of questions. They said all this is public knowledge and available to the title company if they would have called in or when they would have called in, and they make some notes. The title company happened to be, this was a foreclosure that we bought, so it happened to be attorney's title. When we tried working with attorney's title, they didn't want to budge at all. In fact, they told us to look at a particular clause in their title insurance, which is like on the back page, that said they do not cover any outstanding bills from the city. So we couldn't believe that clause was in there. So I started looking at actually my other title policies I have. But again, this is a title insurance policy from attorney's title on a foreclosure house that we bought. Came to light at closing when people were doing the title insurance to sell the house to the new buyer. This was just, again, something came out of left field. It was very shocking.
Road assessment?
Oh, it was maintenance. The city charged all along for cutting the grass, painting a fence, and doing a couple other things, and racked up this bill of $6,800 at the city.
Over how long a period?
I think it was about 6 months.
Yeah.
The title company didn't even look?
To this day, we don't know the truth of the story.
Right.
So the title company denied our claim. We actually went up the ladder at the title company to some vice presidents, did a couple other things. They all looked at it. They all said, oh yeah, we'll get to it. We never got a dime to this day on this particular deal, but we said to each other, do we risk putting it back on the market? How is that going to help us? We have to pay the $6,800. How do we work this in the deal? So we just went back and forth, again, talking, working over our problem, and we decided that Eric and I, because on this particular house we did have an investor, we said this was our problem, it was not our investor's problem, and so we ate the $6,800 out of our portion of the profit, paid the investor what he would have gotten if the full amount would have been there for everybody to split. But one of the important things on there is we've never had a title problem before, but I work very closely with two particular title companies, one up in the Fenton area and one in the local area down here, that know me by name. They do so many different things for us. They do other title checks and things. In my lesson, or the lesson that we learned on this, even though a title company is doing the work, you really need to know what you're getting or what some of the clauses may or may not be in there, and or pay another title company. They don't charge a lot of money to kind of do a soft title search. And if anything comes up, we originally said we're never going to buy another house if it comes with attorney's title. But how many houses do we cut ourselves out of then if we really stuck to that? So any house that comes in, if we can't change it, because sometimes we have requested a different title company and they have not used attorney's title, although it was a trot and trot foreclosure. They've let us choose another title company, or we've had soft title insurance done simultaneously just to make sure that their title insurance is right, because we don't want to eat $6,800 again in the future. And this is something we talk about and we can laugh about. And yes, you think it's a lot of money, but again, it goes back to knowing your numbers. If we didn't have certain criteria in that house, we could have lost money on that deal. But because we always look for a very specific spread, and I'm not looking to lose money and I'm not looking to spend money on other things, but if you have extra money in there, you can overcome obstacles like this when they're thrown at you.
And when Scott says just before closing, this literally was like 48 hours before closing. I mean, it was like you had to make a decision in like an hour, decide what you were going to do, and then boom. I mean, we didn't have a lot of time to decide. We just didn't think it was fair to our investor whatsoever that they should pay the price for something that they had no idea and has no part of. They needed to make their money because they had good faith in us, so we wanted to obviously return that good faith at the end of the deal.
And that brings us to the end of the presentation. Before I actually have questions answered, I have one other thought that was not up here that actually helped us. Is when it comes, we have rental houses, and when it comes to the SEV value, at least for me, I want the lowest SEV value I can because I pay less taxes on a non-owner occupant home, means more money in my pocket. And I had a couple homes out there that I thought the SEV value was a little high on. One happened to be in Roseville, one happened to be in Harper Woods, and one happened to be in Clinton Township. So I did what everybody typically does, is I challenge the taxes when you have that ability. The assessment comes, I filled out the form, I challenged them, I put some information in there, hand delivered them, and I got back. I did not go to the actual meeting. I elected where I do not have to sit down with you. And I got back these letters that said, hey, we think the price is right. This is what you owe. And I thought, man, there's got to be a better way. So I read the little block of a print on the bottom that says you have the ability to take this to the Michigan State Tax Tribunal. So on every one of those houses, I filled out the form. I put in what I thought it should be. I paid the $125. I sent it in. I got my court date, which was actually would have been October 30th and 31st. Got my court date. I got more up-to-date paperwork to take because this time I physically was going to go in so they don't default me. So I got some paperwork together, basically a BPO. I didn't pay for a full appraisal. I just took something that was a little stronger than a comp, put my stuff together that I was going to walk in there. I get a phone call. I think it was Clinton Township called me first. I get a phone call from Clinton Township that says, you know what, we really don't want to go to court with you. And I thought, what is this person saying? And they said, you know, we looked over the stuff. We really don't want to go to court. Is there something we can do to work this out? And I didn't want to seem too eager because it's the first time this has happened to me. So I said, what do you have in mind? And she said, you know, after looking at this, I looked at some of the other houses in the neighborhood are in this range. And I said, you know what? I have to talk to my attorney. Can I call you tomorrow? I didn't have any attorney to talk to. So I hung up the phone. I thought about it. I go, holy crap, I don't have to go to the meeting. I don't have to risk anything. They're offering me something. I called her back the next day and accepted it. On that particular one, I might have them out of order. I got 40% off the SEV value just by that phone call. So I said, if this works like this, I'm going to call the other cities. So I sent an email to Roseville and actually called Harper Woods, and I said, you know what? I have a house in Clinton Township. I'm going to court with you guys to the tax tribunal next week or in 2 weeks from now. They offered me a settlement. Is there anything we can do to work this out so we don't have to waste each other's time? Harper Woods took 50% off, no questions asked. In Roseville, it was like 33%. So one I got 40% off, one 33% off, one half off. That alone on those 3 lower end rentals I have means about $4,000 a year in additional cash flow to me. So it cost me $125 per tax tribunal, and then you have to pay $25 to make it stick because they have a legal agreement. I can't think what it's called off the top of my head, but they have a legal agreement.
A stipulation.
Yeah, a stipulation. Send it in. I've already got a refund check because my taxes are current. They've already sent me refund checks after this happened of my overpayment, so they recalculate it and give me money back. So a lot of these things you can do yourself, and just don't be afraid to do it because you never know until you ask.
No,
So,
no 1099 either.
Yeah.
no 1099.
You claim the full deduction.
Actually, they're all in my IRA, so.
Okay.
But other than that, sorry to digress, but I thought it was something important that everybody could learn as just another tip. But if you guys have any questions, we'd love
If
to
anybody has any questions.
answer anything about this or anything else that we've worked on.
So where are you guys finding deals now? You still doing the MLS? Are you starting to do direct marketing or what?
We do the MLS, certainly. That's just in case something slips through. But as we all know, whoever's on the MLS, I mean, literally it's like vultures over a dead carcass. I mean, 30 minutes to an hour after the house is on there, I mean, it's already off. So honestly, what we've done, James, is we have tried to really identify some key players in some cities that we are familiar with and not familiar with, and really establish continuous relationships with them. That's more me.
Yeah, we have
In
not
terms
done
of,
any marketing at all.
Yeah, no
We-
direct marketing.
We do scour like everybody else. We scour Craigslist, but it's really the MLS. And so many people say there's no deals out there, but it is the MLS. But the important thing about the MLS is exactly what he said. We used to have one exclusive realtor about 4 years ago that bought everything and sold everything for us. 4 years ago is a different time today, and that's the important thing is we had to adapt to the world. So we just decided to go out and find aggressive realtors that are doing business in certain areas, and not all of them want to do business with us. But Eric is much better on this, and he has been better on it than I am. So he's been making relationships with different realtors in different areas, and they are starting to send different things. Some of them are deals, some of them aren't. Also, we've been starting to establish whether they're real or not. There's these people out there that say that they're wholesalers. I'm on probably 20 or 30 wholesale lists and probably ever get 2 or 3 of them never send me anything. But they're starting to send things, and some of them have become very interesting to me, especially on the rental side. Some of the stuff that these people send me are very interesting. But on the other side, we've been getting stuff. Just the other day, we had somebody send us a house that was in Plymouth, a really nice subdivision there, $400,000 house. It was a great deal to live in. It wasn't a great deal to buy and invest in.
Yeah,
but
just
at
wasn't
least
enough
people
for
are starting to send us stuff. So we go out, we put ourselves on these lists and out there and let everybody know we're cash buyers. And it has to go back to this networking, letting people know, because you never know. Could it be your dry cleaner or the person in line at Walmart, whoever? You never know what they happen to have. We also have our Facebook page. It doesn't get a lot of people sending us stuff. We do get some, but I happen to have a website that I haven't updated in quite some time. And that website has a form, and I get stuff all the time of people wanting to sell me stuff. Normally junk, but we have bought a couple houses through our website. And that all it is, we buy house kind of website, and here's a form, and this is who we are. So we have been getting them that way too.
So James, really, there's no magic formula. We just are working hard and constantly in front of people's faces to get houses or to get deals.
So how many are you guys doing at a time typically?
We've done as many as 5 or 6 at a time. We've done as few as obviously 1 or 2 at a time, but I mean we have the crew to do that. In fact, I was telling James before the meeting, we had 2 very big rehabs at the end of last year. They were the equivalent of 4 like regular houses, and we had our crew at both of the houses. So we can handle bigger projects, smaller projects, 4 or 5 at once.
We've actually had at one time 7, not necessarily 7 being rehabbed at once, but 7 in some stage, whether it was being sold, that we just bought it, or on the market kind of thing. So we've done as many as 7, and that's actually seems to be our sweet spot, is have about 7 at a time.
I noticed that some of your samples are in different parts of town, like not even necessarily close to where you live.
Yeah. Scott lives in Sterling Heights. I live in Rochester. Yeah, we don't really care where the house is necessarily, because we can always educate ourselves in the area. We just care if the numbers are there.
And it goes back to trusting our team. In the beginning, I used to visit every single house. There's many of these houses I have never walked in. You might say, how do you do that? I trust the people. I trust when the deal came. I trust that my guy, if he's doing the estimate and not me, that he went in there and told me what is true. I might look at the pictures, look at the comps. I might meet on the trunk of somebody's car to hand them a check and sign off, because it happens a lot. I'm not a big pop and circumstance guy, so I'll sign in the parking lot of a haircutting salon or something on these houses I'm buying instead of going to formal closes and things like that. But it's really putting our team in place that I literally have not visited some of these houses. Do I recommend that for a new investor? Absolutely not. But we can trust these people, and to date, it has worked out for us. In some of these ones, the ones that are in Fenton and Holly and stuff, the interesting thing is my main realtor and our contractor live up in that area. So that's where they're from, and we're from down here, so I even give them more trust in that particular area that's their backyard.
Seth, on your investors, it sounded like you're paying a percentage of the profit, or are you paying an interest on the amount that you borrow?
It actually, we are open to different types of negotiations, but we're typically paying a percentage of the net profit.
Okay, thank you.
The investors funding the whole deal?
It depends. I fund some deals on my own. Eric and I fund some deals together. We also have some investors that are exclusive on a property, and we also have a couple investors now that are pairing together for various reasons, either to mitigate, I don't want to call it risk, but to mitigate the total risk, spreading the risk around to different properties, or maybe not as familiar with a particular area, or at that particular time, money could be spread in some other things, and we maybe have a guy that has 50,000 and somebody else that has 75,000, and they're a great pair. We actually have a team of investors. I've never even met them. There's somebody that Eric knows, and they invest exclusively together. So they pool their money together through Eric to buy the home. So we do a couple different things, and we don't take all investors either. We've turned down several people either because we can't work together, we can't work out the terms, or there might be no room at the time.
When you're doing a deal with multiple investors, how is that structured?
Actually, we've been very fortunate in the way that we've done it, because we were actually worried about, first of all, we talk about it with the investors, and it's pretty close, have been pretty close to a 50-50. Some have been a little bit different ratio. When it's a different ratio, the higher person gets the lien put in first, because we file the liens on all these properties, so they have a secured interest in the property. And if it's 50-50, we usually ask, and the answers we typically get is, doesn't matter which one of us go on there, we're secured, you got the insurance on the house. So we have a separate contract, meaning a promissory note with each one, spelling out the details. We also have a mortgage with each one, and that mortgage gets filed with the county, and then when we're selling the house, we're obtaining the mortgage release and then signing off the promissory note and giving the money back.
So they're not structured as a first and a second, it's just two firsts, or?
No,
Technically, at least what they told us when we go into the county,
first one filed.
the first one filed with the date stamp. So if we're doing it, whoever it is, let's say it happens to be yours, to be the first one handed, and well, then as soon as yours is, then I'll hand them the second one. So it goes in that particular order.
Okay.
The first one's always a priority.
Okay.
So what do you guys plan on doing? Like, what do you see in the market this coming year? And how are you going to adapt your strategy for getting inventory and for doing deal flow?
Actually, it's an interesting question. We're, again, very aggressive at looking for houses. We're putting in more offers now than we have in a long time. Although there's less houses, we're putting in offers on a lot of different things, hoping some stick. Doing our networking, but we're also diversifying behind the scenes. Besides doing the flipping, we have the rental strategy, and then Eric and I are looking at some other things that are still in the real estate realm, but not necessarily flipping or rentals. And we're looking at some other things, diversifying money to keep money working at the same time instead of letting it be idle. And I've heard, just like anybody else, that there's this phantom group of shadow inventory. Depending who you talk to the trot guy, he said there's none out there. You talk to somebody else, and he said it is out there. I don't really know, so we don't really want to worry about there. We worry more about today, but we do talk about the future. What are we going to do? Are we going to move into more turnkey houses? Are we going to move into rentals? Are we going to move to even further areas? there are areas that we haven't explored yet that we have been talking about, but we only look at areas that make sense for efficiency. And one of the, I think you mentioned that you're in West Bloomfield. We stay out of West Bloomfield because there's no efficient way for myself to drive there if I ever have to go there. And so we just crossed it off the list. There are other areas that might be farther away but easier to get to or more efficient. But we are looking at different areas, and we also have adapted our strategy and price range. When we originally started doing this together, we really were in purchasing, let's call it the selling side. The after repaired value was really in the 80 to 125,000 range. And then we really have changed it. We still do houses in that range, but we also do houses 200, 300. So we've actually upped the ante, which then allowed a different type of house to come into the fold.
Go ahead.
You said the one deal. I'm sorry. No, the one deal was 6 months close to close. Is that typical for you?
I would say that if we looked at our numbers over the last 50 houses, it is pretty close, give or take a couple days, that from the day that we write the check to the day that we put the cash in our pocket really is give or take about 6 months. One of the houses that were up there that I lost money on, actually 2 of them were over a year. And then there's been money on them. And then the holding costs are, and then there have been several houses that have been in the 4 or 5 month range. And that if you can't really push a lot of this up, because even if you got the house day one and it's perfect and you found a buyer that day, unless they're a cash buyer, it's taken about 45 days to close on a house anyway. So that's eating, and I found that 45 is on a good day. Mm-hmm. And even when we're pushing and put stipulations in the contract, they want you to do things, 45 days and they still ask for an extension. We have a house right now going right this moment that they just asked for a 5-day extension, all because of the lender, not because of anything we did, the city did, appraisal. The lender just couldn't get to it because of whatever their excuse is, so we had to give a 5-day extension. And we find that happens all the time, no matter how much you keep on these people.
And Jeff, that first deal, the reason it closed in 99 days was because our realtor brought the seller to us and it never technically got listed.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So
that's why we cut out, we just chopped off days, basically.
That's right.
So the lenders that you have, are they private money lenders, brokers, and how do you establish relationships with them?
They're private money lenders. It's made from just relationships, sitting in rooms just like you are now. There are people in this room that probably are private lenders that you may not have met yet. So it's talking to people about different things. That's actually how we have found ours, and or through personal contacts. Like the one I said that Eric has, that they're 2 exclusive people investing. Those are personal friends I went to college with or something like that. I have an old boss from GMAC that was my boss at GMAC. He's a private lender to me now because he wanted X amount of dollars return on investment. And actually somebody in this room was talking at a meeting and my name came up and he goes, "Man, I know that guy." But yeah, Ray. Ray was at a family function and mentioned my name, and this guy happened to be there, and he called me up and said, "Hey, I'm ready to be your private investor." So sorry, Ray, but
You didn't get your piece? Nothing yet.
Loyalty?
Yeah.
At least you should get the finder fee.
Yeah.
Did you have a question? You had your hand up.
Yes, to find that local expert that you were talking about in one of your deals there, how did you advertise to find that person and to actually zero in on that street as an expert?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Actually, how I found the local expert is I have access to the MLS. No, I am not a realtor at all. I just have access to it. So I basically ran a search for all the people who were doing high volume, retail high volume in that particular area, which the area you're talking about is Clinton Township because that's where we sold the house. And I took the top 3 or 4 people, and some of them didn't even call me back. Some of them did, but
That's
I
a
met.
pretty good indicator.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I met with each individual person. There was one that didn't call me back. 3 did. So I met with each individual one, and I went with the best one, who I thought impressed me the most and had the best system in place to sell the house. Yep.
Did you give your client a referral fee for sending you that crazy deal? Your PT place.
I bought her 2 $100 gift cards to local restaurants in Rochester. We made enough money on the house. $200 is a drop in the bucket, and she was very appreciative. So, yeah.
And then another thing, just to touch on there too, we treat all the people that work with us pretty well. When you see that Armando Montelingo on TV and how he treats his people, I don't know how they work for him. Our people, we buy we buy him turkeys at Thanksgiving. We buy him Christmas presents. He sends them cards for their birthdays or if there's other special events in their life. So just constantly keeping in contact with these people and just doing little things, buying pizza to the contractors every now and then, ice cream, little things like that go a long way, and these people become very loyal to you.
Like trying to help your diet?
He's trying to help I buy. I buy the pizza. You know.
He does it behind my back.
Oh, I love it.
As you see, I wasn't allowed to eat any of that food.
That's why I'm on this
And if
side.
Eric wasn't here, I'd have had a whole pizza myself.
But we, honestly, we do. There's a lot of ups and downs in this business, but we, as you can tell, have a lot of fun. We've never really had, you know, you see partners go at it and have to be, you know, detained by people or what. We have never raised our voices to each other. We just hash it out, you know, either in person or on the phone, and that's it.
And our conversation usually goes from business first to our families, because he's a new dad, so he asks a lot of questions about my children are older. How do you do this? How do you do this? So we have our relationship business, and then we also have the personal side. But our business, that's true. We talk about it all the time. We might have differing opinions, and we'll talk about it almost like a debate, and we will decide on one way to go make the decision. And usually, we always agree on what that decision is after we talk about it.
Correct, and we don't get off the phone or out of the meeting until a decision's been made.
Come on. We're here to get him here. Another question?
Question. What sort of design choices are you guys doing these days? Decor, as far as the granite, some finishes. What do you think is?
Well, the one color I showed you is a very neutral color. We use two tones. The kitchen and a bathroom or kitchen in a particular wall is a darker tone. The rest of the house is a little bit lighter tone. We buy the same exact carpet, which some people call a Faraise, and then some people call it a California Berber. But we use the same carpet. And the guy comes out of St. John's, Michigan, to do all our carpet. We have tried other people, but this guy shows up, he vacuums it, doesn't leave junk in the yard. But we use the same carpet in all the houses, very similar light fixtures. We're using typically, I think it's tan brown or Baltic brown for granite countertops. Again, the granite company, that seems to be standard. When I call them, that goes in there, it matches our decor. We typically go the same color cabinet in all the homes unless we're doing some experimentation. We use the white. I mean, this is standard stuff that you see in a lot of these things. With the white, we put always new electrical plates and light switch plates so that it looks fresh. We put new trim molding. We used to do crown molding the entire house and found through our research that people cared less about it anywhere else except when they walked into the house or a kitchen or dining room or down the hall. So we actually still put crown molding. If we can get in the ceilings, we're doing recessed lights, because so many of the houses in this age group we're talking about don't even have lights at all in the room. So we're putting recessed lights in them. We use one or two different shingle colors. We use only two different door colors, a burgundy color or blue color, and it depends what color the roof is, depending on which one we use. That also then would match the shutters. Shutters are off the shelf stuff. So we basically, I mean, it's very standard, it's very clean, it's something that you can move into, and you might like different colors yourself personally, but you can see yourself, wow, at least I could live it this way and I don't have to do anything. We really try to do turnkey homes from top to the bottom.
You do brushed nickel or bronze?
6 panel doors. We used to spend extra money on the nickel handles because it actually, to me, is more in today's world, but it became a big expense again, and we went back to the bronze ones, and we don't have people complain about things like that. We listen, and I always ask feedback from the realtor, and I always tell the realtor to go to anybody else who's shown the house and get feedback, and we really take that feedback to heart. And a lot of times, it is not what you would think it happens to be. But if somebody constantly would say something over and over, we will actually, we'll talk about it and we'll adjust it to something else.
How much landscaping do you do?
Minimal. Minimal. Little tiny plants that are on sale wherever we can get them, and a couple bags of mulch that you get at the gas station. But that's what we add in. Now, taking out, we absolutely clean up the houses. Cut down, bushes to their manageable size, cut trees so you can see through them. So we do a lot of cleanup of the landscaping, not necessarily adding to it. But we do put a little bit if the house looks plain in the front.
Clean and neat. That's all. We spend minimal amount of money on landscaping, especially since we're selling some of our houses in the winter. can't really.
That might
do
even
a
lead
whole
to
lot
another
of
question about staging too.
I was just gonna ask that. You guys ever stage or you use interior decorators?
Yes and no. We do not pay a professional.
Right.
I happen to own, or before I met Eric, a trailer full of furniture that's been sitting in the trailer for 4 years. So I'm waiting to give it to my daughter to take to college now because we don't pull it out. But our realtor, the main realtor, not all of it, but the one that I talk about that sells about 2/3 of our stuff, she owns her own staging stuff for us now. And she moves it from house to house to house and puts it in because she found it was easier for her to sell the houses. And she doesn't do a lot of stuff. She goes to Hobby Lobby? I don't know, some of these crazy places that you can get stuff that probably you can flick with your finger and it'd fall over. But it looks good, and it's a lot of things that she hangs on the walls. Clocks and some things in the kitchen and a little rug. She does a lot of little things, and then she takes it from house to house. But she's finding that so many of these buyers buy this stuff from her, and she just sells it to them for cost because they want it because it look good. And
it's another way to make your realtor happy.
So have you guys got anything that's wrapping up that we could maybe go take a look at your finished products?
we have a house, but it's closing any day in Berkeley, so I don't want to necessarily open the doors to that. The other houses we have right now that you could go look at are in Linden, Linden, Fenton.
Okay.
And more than happy to let people
Sure.
see our work. I've done it a lot of times.
Absolutely.
Do we need to give you a phone call to set up an appointment, or
I-
call your realtor, or?
We'll just have to work that out.
Okay.
If I was, we'll just have to work it out. So whether my realtor meets you there or I'll let you go by yourself, we'll just work that out behind the scenes.
Okay.
Hey Scott or Eric, do you have a standard policy? Do you automatically gut the kitchen and bathrooms? Or do you make a decision, if tile's good enough in the bathroom, we'll leave it?
We usually gut it, but we've kept kitchen tile before, and we've kept kitchen cabinets before, and just restained them.
Rarely do we keep it because that's really what sells. The kitchen,
The show
and the bathrooms and things like that. But many times we're not going to stuff out, especially if it has any dated look at all, broken, whatever, it's gone.
Yep.
And then we either sell it on Craigslist and then do health food parties with it. Or we've in the past too taken some of that stuff, and because you don't get a lot of money on Craigslist, we've used it in rental houses.
Usually redo the front door.
The front door typically is painted. Well, it absolutely is painted.
Right.
And if it's a disaster, we'll buy a door. If we're buying a door, we'll buy whatever one's on sale that has a piece of glass in it. But if the door is not a disaster, meaning dents and things, we just paint it even if it doesn't have a window. But we put the fancier, longer door handle, I don't know what you call them, what you put.
French. Just to pretty it up.
Yeah, to pretty up the front door.
All right, let's give a big round of applause. You were too embarrassed to ask a question from everybody. Don't worry, they'll stick around for a little while. You interrogate them. One more quick update. Right now we have President Barack Obama at 64 electoral votes and former Governor Mitt Romney at 67. Maine, Vermont, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Maryland, DC, and Illinois went to Barack Obama. Oklahoma, Indiana, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, South Carolina, and Georgia to Mitt Romney. So that's where we're at. I either read it wrong or they changed it. Sorry. Those are exit polls anyway.
They grow up so fast, don't they? You're right.